Hello and welcome to The Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today I'm looking at the 2005 to 2006 series Ghost Rider: Road to Damnation. With Preacher having ended in October of 2000, Garth Ennis was riding high on success and demand. Never a superhero fan though, he would mostly write grittier, more down-to-earth comics, or ones that attacked the entire idea of superheroes, like his 2006 to 2012 series, The Boys. Despite that, he would do some work for Marvel Comics in the early 2000s, primarily on more Earthbound characters like Punisher, but also on some major Marvel characters like Hulk, Thor, and even Spider-Man. Given Ennis' distaste for superheroes, his history of writing characters stuck in a war between heaven and hell, and Marvel's own recurring desire to revamp old, semi-successful characters for newer generations, it's probably not at all surprising that eventually Ennis would land on writing a series about the Ghost Rider. And who is the Ghost Rider? Well, I could go over his long history, but the relevant bits get covered within the comic itself, so let's go ahead and take a look at how Ennis chooses to tell that story, and take this away. The comic opens with some absolutely stunningly gorgeous art from artist Clayton Crain. Hot damn! I mean, check out this double-page spread. Literally the second and third pages of this book. Holy cow, that's freaking awesome. Crain's art is all clearly computer-generated, but he has pretty much perfected it as an art form for comics. When I was originally picking up this comic in single issues, I remember being blown away by this art. There's just nothing else like it in the medium, and though I have seen some attempts at digital art since from other artists, none of it even comes close to comparing to this. That said, I do have to admit, I feel it has some serious weaknesses. Faces, primarily, I think tend to turn out pretty weird in this style, though I feel Crain mostly does a good job in this series. Also, since it's digitally created, Crain does all the work himself, including coloring and lettering, which is why there's only 2 names on the cover. While I find the lettering to be pretty much fine, and most of the colors to work perfectly fine or even occasionally be stunning, a lot of this comic has what feels like way too muted or dark of colors, and the lack of contrast can really make it hard occasionally to tell what's going on. Which is why no matter how good you are at coloring your own work, it's probably best to have someone else do it. Ghost Rider is the superhero identity of Johnny Blaze. As this comic tells his story, when he learned that his good buddy, the Evel Knievel-styled motorcycle stuntman, Crash Simpson, was dying of cancer, Blaze immediately sold his soul to the devil in order to save Crash. And I'd make jokes about how ridiculous all that sounds, but this comic does it for me. Man, those are some snarky angels. So Crash is cured, but since he's unaware of the miracle, he attempts an impossible motorcycle stunt that lets him live up to his name. With Crash dead, Johnny feels like he was cheated on his deal, but the devil don't care and drags him to hell. Something goes wrong for the devil here though, and suddenly Johnny is bonded with a demon of his own that gives him a flaming skull and a new lease on life. For a time, he went on to become a superhero until eventually hell managed to claim him for good. Now he spends every day of eternity riding his bike toward the gates of hell, with all the hordes of hell hot on his heels, and always claiming him and ripping him to shreds just before he manages to escape. What a sissy. Fuss. Sisyphus. But now, something is changing. It seems heaven and hell have been locked in an endless war for all of eternity, with Earth as their battlegrounds. A powerful and formless demon named Kazan that has helped Hell win many battles has grown tired of petty struggles and desires greater power. So he seeks help on Earth from a 1%er who became quadriplegic after a car accident. An accident he caused from driving while drunk, where he crashed into a school bus, killing 8 children. But all he remembers is that there was an accident and now he can't walk. Man, rich people are the worst. This man, Earl Gustav, who like Odin Quincannon has a tendency to talk about himself in third person, is only focused on getting the use of his legs back, and so he uses his power and influence from his petroleum company to make a deal with Kazan. He sacrifices all the members of his board of directors to give Kazan a body, and builds a giant drill for Kazan to literally drill straight to hell. Yeah, you can do that apparently. But the forces of heaven and hell aren't happy with Kazan being loose and on his own, so they sent their own people to track him down and drag him home. Hell sent this living embodiment of gluttony, a demon named Haas, that's about as bad a caricature of a southerner as has ever existed, with this really awful dialogue writing that I'm really not sure what accent they think it's supposed to be, though knowing Ennis, I'm guessing probably Texan. 'Cause I mean, that's how I talk, certainly. He even enters the comic ironically singing Ghost Riders in the Sky, a Cowboy Legend by Stan Jones. And I would say he seems to be singing the wrong lyrics, but honestly, there's so many versions of that song, I wouldn't be surprised if this was accurate to one of them. He immediately comes across some Sons of Anarchy wannabes who insult his ride. Stupid caddy? Really? Why did you even bother emphasizing the double O sound in stupid? Is there another way to pronounce it? For this obviously unforgivable offense, Haas gives them all Ghost Rider heads, but instead of becoming superheroes themselves, they just seem to die. Well, that's lame. The one survivor of the Moto gang crashes, and as he's lying there dying, Haas decides to give him a rather on-the-nose makeover, literally sticking his head up his ass, and thus calling him Butthead. No, R-Space. Wait, what? Buttview? That's what you went with? Is that a thing? Buttview and Haas meet up a little down the road with Ghost Rider, who has been freed from hell with the help of the angel Malachi. Malachi's goals remain hidden to us, but he considers returning Kazan to hell to be important enough to promise Ghost Rider freedom from his eternal torment if he manages to be the one to bring in Kazan first. But Ghost and Haas end up working together on this, especially after they have a run-in with the third hunter, Heaven's agent, Ruth, who, not gonna lie, is probably my favorite character here, even though she's introduced to us in a super messed up way. We learned earlier from the angels Daniel and Malachi, who are apparently the angels of exposition, that about 1 in every 4 or 5 million humans can actually see angels. We see 2 of those, the first being this woman who spots Daniel and Malachi talking, prompting Malachi to shut her down briefly, which apparently causes her to miscarry. Man, Malachi's a dick. The other is this little boy at a highway rest stop cafe. He spots Ruth, and because of his 1 in 5 million ability, he can tell she's an angel. Though his mom can't and just thinks he's being an annoying little kid. Parents, am I right? Ruth responds to being spotted with even more extreme measures than Malachi, waving some finger spell in the air that convinces the kid that he's a sinner and needs to stab his own eye out with a coloring pencil. Damn, that's messed up. But she spends most of the rest of the comic being an absolute badass. When she comes across Ghost Rider and Haas, she tries to run them down with a bus. And when that fails, rather epically, she just throws the entire bus at them. Hot damn. She then steals Johnny's motorcycle, powering it up with some greased lightning, and arrives first at Gustav's compound. She then proceeds to casually kill the gate guards to steal their guns before riding in dual-wielding machine guns while riding hands-free. She even kills the head of Gustav's security by simply ripping his brain straight out of his head. Gruesome, but awesome. But gruesome. And she does all of it without ever saying a word, making her damn creepy on top of everything else. She's not fast enough to stop Kazan though, who has succeeded in drilling his hole to hell, unleashing all its demon hordes on the world. Shows what you know, Ennis. Hell is Texas. Duh. As Johnny and Haas finally arrive and the demons surround them all, Ruth finally feels some remorse about the people she's harmed. Aw, look at her hug that poor dying man. Oh, no, she just wanted to use him as a weapon to hit Haas. Yeah, that makes more sense. While Haas and Ruth have the world's most messed up pillow fight, Johnny faces down Kazan, who we soon learn is also an angel. Seems he's Malachi's brother, in fact, and the two stood on different sides of Lucifer's uprising back in the day. So one was cast down to hell, and the other stayed in heaven. Like good bros though, they stayed in touch, leaking secrets of each side to one another to help get themselves moved up in the ranks. But when Kazan got tired of the war and started all these shenanigans, Malachi grew worried Ruth would find him and torture the truth out of him, leaving Malachi well and truly screwed. Which is why he sent Ghost Rider in the first place, to try to get Kazan back to hell before Ruth could get to him. Ghost Rider doesn't particularly care about any of this though, still hoping to win his freedom from hell by fulfilling his part of the bargain. Not that he does a whole lot. The day is actually saved by, of all people, Gustav's long-suffering secretary, Jemima Catman. For some reason, she went along with everything Gustav asked of her, from the firing of the board, to the drawing of the demonic summoning circle used to bring Kazan to Earth in the first place, to the design, construction, and use of the Hell Drill. But once demons were unleashed on the Earth, she finally had enough. That's one hell of a thick breaking point, I'm just saying. She hears Kazan tell Gustav that they are the only two people who can break the spell, so she holds Gustav over the pit to hell and demands he reverse the damage he's done. Gustav relents, casting the spell that drags all the demons in Kazan back down to where they belong. Before she can pull him back to safety though, Ruth appears out of nowhere and says her one and only line of the entire series, scaring Jemima just enough to drop Gustav to his death. Damn, I love Ruth. Ghost Rider only has a moment to celebrate his victory before he's shot through the head by extremely minor side character Father Adam, an ex-marine turned minister who's basically just another person in this story who sold his soul to a demon. Ghost Rider wakes up in hell, being informed by Malachi that his promise to free Johnny from his torment was just a lie. Before he can be on his way though, Ruth again pops into frame and rips the wings from his shoulders, stranding him also in hell. It seems with Malachi and Kazan having gotten too big for their britches, Ruth and Haas have decided to team up and take over their roles as the new ladder climbers in the war between heaven and hell. Johnny at this point finally realizes that both heaven and hell are just as bad as each other, two sides of the same coin, and he's pretty sick of them. Haas sympathizes with his situation though, parting with some friendly advice to take his fun where he can get it. So the comic ends with Johnny's dead bones still being given to all the demons in hell, but at least now, he's dragging Malachi's broken body along with him. Or, at least I think that's what's happening. I don't really know. It's pretty dark. Speaking of dark, it's time for the breakdown. This comic is definitely not without its faults. As I mentioned, the dark muted colors can make it occasionally hard to keep reading, and you can pretty much feel that same contempt Ennis had for everything from Preacher leaking through all the pores of this comic. But as someone who did enjoy that series, I enjoy all the little bits here that feel like nods to the fans of it. From this weird appearance of the KKK, who get burned up by Ghost Rider's bike when he escapes hell, to the supposed Texas setting, though it's quite clear to me that Ennis has still never been to Texas. And Crain's art, despite whatever issues I may have with it, is by and large absolutely gorgeous, and almost worth the price of admission on its own. In fact, this team-up proved so popular that Ennis and Crain actually worked together on a second Ghost Rider title about a Ghost Rider from the Old West, and inspired a new ongoing series about the character that would come straight out of this series, though neither Crain nor Ennis would actually work on that one. But as for this series, I'm giving it a recommendation level of high. Even though Ghost Rider is a somewhat secondary character in his own title, it's still an interesting and downright gorgeous take on the mythos that's totally worth checking out. Thanks everybody for watching. You may have figured out by now that I plan to do horror-themed comics for the entire month of October. So make sure you stick around to see more comics about ghosts and demons as I go through the rest of the month, counting down to Halloween. Hope to see you then, right here, in the Comic Cave.